what happened was that in 68, 69, what the TWLF and BSU as a strike wanted to do was to, one, admit more students of color to San Francisco State, hire more faculty of color in San Francisco State, all of which we see so much of now, and also establish the College of Ethnic Studies. Now, the college, in terms of curriculum, we have always advocated that we get an education so that we can go back and serve our respective communities. And a real thread in the early courses was to have community involvement in our students. So now here we are, 50 years later, and we realize the history of the strike is fast fading, just because of time, and also a lot of us are, I was going to say barely standing, but still standing, and are not necessarily with you on a regular basis. So this first portion is basically some videos. First, a video that's a summation of what the strike was, which is from newsreel, and then we'll have two strikers speak that were speaking to students back then, and then we'll have another film after that little. It's not speaking. They want questions from you, so everyone's got to wake up. Oh, sorry, including myself. Think of questions you might ask the strikers that were involved in these films, and enjoy and learn. So, thank you. Without them, you would not have the classes that you have today, nor will you be part of GE, nor will you get the knowledge and the heart of what we were all trying to do 50 years ago, and I hope it came through that people were committed with passion, and that's the key element to that strike. For the next couple of minutes, 10 minutes, I would like students, from the audience to give us some exchange here in terms of questions you may have, because guess what? The person with the hair and the strong and colorful language about the administration is here with us today. And is Nesbitt here? Okay. Well, Roger Alvarado is here, right here today. We want to introduce our one of the people. Roger? I would love it if some of you could give us feedback as to what you saw, and then also ask a question or so of Roger.
Does anybody have any comments or questions? Sure,
come
go
on
ahead.
Come on the
microphone right here.
Good morning. Thank you all of you for coming out. It was really nice watching that video. How did it feel when you guys had that sense? Did you guys feel a sense of unity when you were striking together?
Yeah, it was pretty remarkable. And it was one of the things that I wanted to mention before we get into all the sessions, and that is just to realize that during the development of getting to the point of the strike and during the strike, that the coalitions that formed really solidified and extended throughout so much of the college community in terms of the white students joining in and following the leadership of the Third World Liberation Front and the Black Student Union, as well as the fact that so many people lost their jobs behind the strike. And we never, believe me, no one has ever came up to me and resented the fact that we had a strike. In terms of people that worked here, some of the students that were here who resented the strike, yeah, they've been pretty vocal at times, right? But when I'm talking about the janitors and the people that were working for the student services and in the cafeteria and all, all of those folks, were people from our communities, and no one has ever mentioned to me any resentment for having the strike. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, you bet. Comments? Nothing else? Big.
Roger, could you give us an overview of the repression that you suffered? I understand that 3 people ended up doing some prison time, and just you know, we don't know, like, how many, or who lost their jobs, how many.
Sure. But just thank you for the question. But what I want to do is refer back to what's going to be discussed in one of the panels, because that's exactly where, I mean, they're the people who have the real information, the numbers, the names, and the real consequences in terms of members of the various student groups, the teachers, the faculty, lecturers, as well as community individuals. And it's just an important part to appreciate what went on during this particular, in regards to this particular aspect of punishment that was meted out by this system. I want to just touch briefly on what's going to happen today and express or share with you the reality that nothing comes out of a vacuum. That everything that we experience is totally related to things that have gone on before us, and it's going to impact the things that are going to come after us. And that's going to be the first part of the panel that you see today. What they're going to talk about is the essential elements of the different movements that have come together that made possible for what happened here in San Francisco State. Because it did not come out of nowhere. There are so many different incidents that happened, not only in the Bay Area, not only nationally, but internationally. What's really curious about that era, and particularly the year 68, 69, is the amount of activity that was going on globally. It was really, really remarkable. I mean, things were happening around the world that just really seemed to express people's willingness to act and to resist, to demonstrate for what they felt that were wrongs and things that they wanted to address. And so it's like, what you'll hear in the first segment is some reflection on what all of that was about. And then subsequently after that, the vet committee that put together this series really tried to make it work out so that it was sequential, so that you have a chance to understand where this thing came from, how it was formed, what happened when it went down, and what the end result of it was.
Faculty? Yes.
Hi, my name is Wayne Harrigan. I'm a faculty member in the college that you helped found, and I actually turned 50 this year, so I'm really excited about that. I work at coincided with the birth of the college, and I've been teaching here for 20 years now. And every time I see this footage, the thing that really strikes me is the physical danger that y'all were in, particularly when you see the guns being pulled out by the police. And I know from my colleague, Lori Chu, who spent, 21 days in jail, that there was a real risk that people were taking with their lives, you know, on a physical level, but also with their lives in the sense of, you know, getting a jail record or being seen, you know, maybe losing their ability to be in school, or like you mentioned, losing their jobs. And I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about what that felt like and what was at stake that made you all feel like you really needed to take this risk.
Sure, I would welcome any of the strikers if they have a comment they'd like to share in response to the question. Yes, Ramona?
I can speak for myself as an African American woman. I came to San Francisco State in '67. Thank you. I came to San Francisco State in '67, and I looked like I was a chocolate version of the cover of 16 magazine. I had a little flip, pink lipstick, bangs, and, you know, kind of flat back there. Intentionally. I was doing everything I could to assimilate. When I got to San Francisco State, I saw an environment where it was right for me to be me. But I didn't know who me was. And the classes that I was taking were classes that were beginning to help me to see who I was. Those classes were coming from experimental college. And when I learned that the BSU was beginning to formulate this strategy to fix this problem. The miseducation of people of color, the assimilation that would cause us to melt into a model that wasn't ours, why I felt awkward not fitting in all of those years. The time was right. On top of that, we had lost a number of civil rights leaders through assassinations. There was Dr. King, of course, Malcolm X, some of our white colleagues in politics, Robert Kennedy, John Kennedy. We had lost all of these young girls in the church, and the 2 Jewish men who were there to help support. We just saw a conflagration of energy that was about to come to a halt, particularly with the assassination of Medgar Evers. And so what we really wanted to do was pick up the baton of civil rights, activism, before it came to an end. We saw the backlash taking effect, and we decided it was time for us to do something. For me, the fact that I found a home where I could be me, it was worth fighting for.
Can I have Nesbitt speak first?
Nesbitt, do you want to come up?
Yeah. Nesbitt Crutchfield was the other speaker as a student before Roger. So here he is, Nesbitt Crutchfield. So first of all, the question was, Nesbitt, how we were able or not afraid to face the dangers that were presented in front of us with the police and whatever. Okay, there was another question here that I saw raised
That
hand.
was Karen. Karen had another question.
Okay,
So, my question to the students is, we lived through that experience, but it's 50 years later, and I'm really curious what your feeling is when you see this. Does it seem surreal? Does it seem like that's pretty crazy, what was happening on this campus? 20-year-old, 18-year-old students were having guns focused at them. That's pretty, I mean, I really want to hear, you're in school now, what do you think about that? Just popcorn, stand up and tell me. I'm a teacher, I really want to know how you're experiencing this movie, this film.
I really kind of felt my heart clenched because I see this campus every day. I also teach young students athletic studies. I've taught in 4th and 5th grade, and now I'm teaching in high school. And to think about, I kind of thought about my students and thinking about their bodies being there. And seeing buildings that I walk into every week to learn how to, I guess, really make a change in my community. It reminded me how much history is, I mean, not only in the quad, but just in the whole campus. It was kind of like I felt like liquid nitrogen had been like poured into my body. But yeah.
Can you hear me? Okay, cool. I'd like to say that I've sat on the quad every day possible since I've gone to SF State about 3 years ago. And from today forward, I will never sit on that same grass again, the same way, based on what I saw that you guys had to go through there. So that's very impactful. Thank you all for going through that. And I'd also like to reflect on the fact that I feel really at home here because of that. My mom was a student at SF State during the strikes as well, so it's something that's always been in my home. But when I come here, and I'm currently attending an Asian Studies course, Asian Cultural Studies, and when I go to class, I feel right at home. I feel that my student body is ready to share their experiences with me, and I've always felt that the work you guys did there makes a great impact on me today, because I'm sure, like you mentioned, if you hadn't done that, the courses I take today wouldn't be an option. So I would like to say thank you, and I'd also, if you have time, answer the question of if you feel like the strikes and the effort you did really, is this the payout that you were hoping for?
This is the payout that we are looking for.
Good morning. The question is this, is the current School of Ethnic Studies and environs what we were working for? And I think that the best way for me to answer that is to say that I'm a father of 4 and I'm a grandfather of 4. And you know, your children and your grandchildren never turn out to be exactly as you want them to be. But on the other hand, I feel incredibly blessed to have healthy, brilliant children and grandchildren. And they have to live their own lives as they see fit. You get my point? My point is that you see, we tried to establish a school of third world studies and a third world studies department. We had no intention of establishing a school of ethnic studies. I'm just being really frank with you. But what we have is an embryo of what can start germinating, even after 50 years, into growth and into a situation that is incredibly important in reference to what's going on in our nation, both nationally, internationally, and locally today. So we're glad to be here. We are incredibly glad that there is a School of Ethnic Studies. There's a lot of work to be done. There's a lot to be learned. And we're glad that we lived to help birth this child.
Yeah. Just to back that up, I'm going to go back to one of the origins of the strike, and that had to do with this campus's relationship with the communities, not only in terms of this campus, but also education. And when you think about the resources that are available on any campus in regards to the numbers that are there, whether they're students or faculty or administrators, there's an incredible potential to review what's going on in the communities, that's impacting the communities, and as well as the facility, to do the analysis to understand how things can be made different so that the situation in communities are better. So that rather than people being divided, we're able to address questions that nobody seems to want to bring to the fore as far as the public is concerned. That has to do with our well-being, our relationships, has to do with the racism that exists throughout this country, has to do with the poverty that exists throughout this country, has to do with the gender issue that we still don't seem to be able to find our way through. It's an incredible fucking waste of our time together when we have an opportunity to sit down and exchange, challenge, and reflect, and develop directions, actions for us to be able to move forward. This school is that opportunity. We need not ignore it. We need to pay attention to it. We need to address our own selves and what it is that's going to be best for us that we share with others. Because that's what really kept the TWLF together, the Black Student Union together. The experience of racism, the experience of poverty. That experience kept us united because when we sat down and we disagreed, we had something that brought us back to the table. Okay, so just let me finish with one more statement and a request, and that is that we're here to engage you. And one of the questions I'm going to ask you to ask people as they present to you their information and experience is, okay, you're telling us what you did right. What did you do wrong? What were the mistakes that we made? I want to hear those kind of questions, and I want them to be pointed to the things that you hear said. Thank you.
Okay,
thing, we thought this program out very strategically, and I know many of you have classes afterwards, so you might be gone for the entire day. But specifically to the question that was asked by that young man, I think if you have time today, between 4 and 7, we're gonna have a session that is about lessons learned and how we're gonna like to pass it on to you all for now and in the future. I encourage you to come back. And of course, during the whole session, every session is a match to the class schedule. So, one session now is just to incite your interest for you to come back, and also to do what Roger Nesbitt said, ask us the questions. We want to hear from you. That's what this 50th is about. But now we have one more segment of the film, and I do want to show this film, and perhaps have a couple of minutes to ask a question of persons involved there. So, thank you.